Gilligan's Island has spent decades remembered as one of the most cheerful and harmless sitcoms in television history. With its tropical setting, goofy comedy, colorful castaways, and lighthearted adventures, the series became pure escapism for audiences during the 1960s. Every week, viewers watched seven stranded strangers stumble through ridiculous survival situations while somehow remaining optimistic no matter how absurd life on the island became. The cast looked playful, relaxed, and surprisingly close on screen, helping create the illusion that filming the show must have been just as fun behind the scenes. But according to cast interviews, biographies, and stories from people connected to the production, the real atmosphere surrounding Gilligan's Island was often far more toxic, bitter, and emotionally exhausting than audiences ever imagined. Behind the fake palm trees and laugh tracks were intense ego clashes, personal resentment, financial bitterness, emotional isolation, and scandals Hollywood worked hard to keep hidden for decades. These are the dark truths that revealed Gilligan's Island was far more toxic than fans ever knew. One of the biggest sources of tension behind the scenes involved the growing resentment surrounding Tina Louise, who played Ginger Grant. On television, Ginger was the glamorous movie star whose beauty and confidence added sophistication to the island. But behind the scenes, Louise reportedly became deeply unhappy with the series as production continued. Unlike some cast members who embraced the silly tone of the show, Louise reportedly feared Gilligan's Island was damaging her credibility as a serious actress. According to multiple stories from the production, she disliked being reduced to what she considered a one-dimensional sex symbol role, while the show increasingly leaned into exaggerated comedy. Tensions reportedly worsened because Louise allegedly felt isolated from the rest of the cast socially and emotionally. Several co-stars later implied that she intentionally distanced herself from group bonding activities and rarely participated in reunions after the series ended. Over time, rumors spread that other cast members viewed her as arrogant or dismissive toward the show itself. Meanwhile, Louise reportedly felt misunderstood and frustrated by the way Hollywood permanently associated her with Ginger despite her broader acting ambitions. The emotional divide became so deep that decades later, she remained one of the only major cast members who consistently avoided full reunion participation with the others. Another major source of bitterness involved the enormous financial injustice surrounding the show's long-term success. While Gilligan's Island became one of the most profitable syndicated sitcoms in television history, many cast members reportedly earned surprisingly little from reruns compared to the money generated for studios and networks. According to later interviews, some actors became deeply resentful after realizing how valuable the series had become while they received relatively modest compensation. The frustration reportedly intensified because the cast initially believed the show's growing popularity would eventually improve their financial security. Instead, many actors later felt trapped by iconic roles that made them famous without making them wealthy. Several cast members reportedly struggled finding serious acting work after the series because Hollywood executives viewed them permanently as their island characters. What audiences saw as nostalgic comfort became emotionally frustrating for actors trying desperately to escape typecasting while watching studios continue profiting from their images year after year. One of the darkest truths behind the show involved the emotional isolation and frustration experienced by Bob Denver, who played Gilligan himself. On screen, Denver looked endlessly cheerful, goofy, and carefree. But privately, the pressure of carrying the entire series reportedly became emotionally exhausting. Gilligan was the center of nearly every storyline, meaning Denver faced enormous responsibility to maintain the show's comedic energy constantly. According to several stories from people connected to production, Denver sometimes felt trapped inside a role audiences refused to separate from his real identity. Like many sitcom stars, he reportedly struggled with being viewed as a cartoon character rather than a serious performer. The emotional burden became heavier as years passed because Gilligan's popularity overshadowed nearly everything else in his career. While audiences adored the lovable castaway, Denver reportedly became frustrated by Hollywood's unwillingness to see him as anything beyond that single role. Some insiders later described him as emotionally conflicted about the fame the series brought him because it simultaneously gave him success while limiting his future opportunities. Another toxic element behind the scenes involved the hierarchy and favoritism that reportedly developed among cast members during production. While the series promoted the idea that all 7 castaways were equally important, insiders later suggested certain actors received noticeably more promotional attention and influence than others. Tensions allegedly developed over dressing room treatment, salary negotiations, script focus, and publicity opportunities. According to several stories, some cast members quietly resented how heavily the show centered around specific characters, while others remained underdeveloped despite the series' growing popularity. Like many ensemble sitcoms, the pressure of fame slowly transformed coworkers into competitors. Actors reportedly became increasingly aware of who producers valued most and who the network viewed as replaceable. The emotional strain created subtle divisions within the cast that audiences never noticed on screen. One of the strangest and most uncomfortable scandals connected to Gilligan's Island involved the growing public obsession with the female cast members, particularly Dawn Wells and Tina Louise. During the height of the show's popularity, the Marion versus Ginger debate became a genuine cultural phenomenon across America. Fans obsessively argued over which woman represented the ideal fantasy girlfriend, turning both actresses into symbols rather than real people. Behind the scenes, the attention reportedly created awkward pressure and emotional discomfort. While audiences treated the debate playfully, the actresses themselves reportedly dealt with endless objectification, public scrutiny, and unrealistic expectations about appearance and personality. According to later interviews, Hollywood heavily marketed both women through carefully controlled fantasies that often ignored who they actually were privately. The emotional pressure of constantly embodying idealized male fantasies reportedly became exhausting over time, especially during an era when actresses had very little control over how studios presented them publicly. Another dark truth connected to the series involved the emotional loneliness many cast members experienced after the show ended. While Gilligan's Island remained massively successful in syndication for decades, several actors reportedly struggled privately with feeling professionally trapped by the series. Hollywood often treated sitcom actors as inseparable from their most famous characters, making it difficult for them to transition into more serious work afterward. Some cast members found themselves attending endless nostalgia events, interviews, and reunions while quietly carrying frustration over careers that never evolved the way they hoped. The island became both a blessing and a prison. Audiences loved the cast deeply, but that love often came with the expectation that the actors remain emotionally frozen inside the fantasy forever.